Hey everyone, how's it going? So this is going to be a pretty basic video. It might run a little bit long because I'm going to cover two topics. Um, the first of which is going to be just a general overview of the fundamental units, the atomic units of the automata system. These units will generally not be broken up by people building missions, but will be used. Things inside them will be changed, like the type of unit, but the system and how they're wired won't change. You'll see that in just a second. Um, and it will additionally be, because you will use those kind of units for this, it will be show you how to make a quick mission, pretty much aping the QMB in the actual game. This is different though, and has more flexibility, and obviously you're going to the mission editor, and there's some other things. It's not anywhere near as easy as the QMB in the actual mission, but you can do lots of stuff. Additionally, for people that do this kind of things, I saw that there's a few people doing this already. This gives a good overview of the core components of the system that you could use to do things like scripting missions with this. That's obviously a totally different subject, and we'll talk about it some other time. So let's get there, and I'm going to start right here. I picked the Lukey map just because I like it. It's a really great map. It is a little hard to make complex missions on because it has so many trees and so many rivers, but it's so pretty. I think in the summertime in particular, it's gonna be great. These lakes are awesome. There's also some really cool airfields for people that haven't used this. This airfield's right on the water. It's so cool. Here we'll look at it. See that? It's great. Really well put together. The city looks great. The train station, yeah, it's just a great map. Everybody knows that already, so I should probably stop talking about it. The other reason that this is an entirely empty map is because I want to pretend like I'm you guys. So when you import this package, and I'll have it up shortly, it'll give you, fundamentally, the main thing it's going to give you that you're going to care about, ignore all this crap by the way, this is just stuff I have, is it's going to give you a group, and I'll show you where you put that, because I'm just going to send you guys a zip file. Groups go into wherever your install directory is, data, mission. And so I have the boneyard in here. Boneyard is like an old school term. Um, People use it in. You guys probably know already. What am I talking about? It's just like all the craft that you use to grab things from. So these are all little defaults. It's not big, so like this will take just a second to bring in, and this is one of the slowest things that the mission editor does, is bringing things in and out like this, especially if you've done a lot of work on a mission, but like it's fine. It's not really a problem or anything. That's not a complaint. That's just like something to prepare you for. So here it is. Looks like a bunch of junk in there. We're just going to go through each single one of them. There's not a lot. There really isn't. Every single mission I have built has had only these components in it, fundamentally. And like some of them, as the guys that have played them could attest, are very complicated. Um, and that's actually a very good paradigm for any big system. The original C programming language, Kernighan and Ritchie, was, I think, 13, maybe 15 words total. Total. So, like, um, low number of words, which is effectively what this is good. Too much dork over there. So let's just go through these. This is going to be brief. This thing is called the phase gauge. If I go inside it, what it is, essentially, we're not really going to talk about the details of how it works, is it's a gauge that can be set at a level, 1, 2, 3, or 4, and by hitting a trigger, any of these 4 triggers, you set it. You set it to either 1, 2, 3, or 4. By hitting this, it makes it go up. So, like, if it was at 3, it would go to 2. Sorry about that mute there. I had to cough real quick. Um, If it was at 2, it would go to 1. If it's at 1, in this, how I have it configured here, it just stays at 1. When you hit up, when you're at 1, it hits 1 again and stays there. So what I use this to do is measure like overall success in the battle. So like you can see it's actually connected for people that have used the mission builder here. If you haven't, by the way, if you've never used the mission builder, this is still totally an acceptable video. You'll definitely need some on-ramping, but like not a lot. It sets the what airplanes are at the airfield. So like this is kind of a thing that's used to control, to measure the success of the overall battle, and use it in a bunch of different ways. So essentially your other units will be doing things, and under certain conditions they'll move it up or down. And I use it, but you're welcome to use this thing any way you like. I use it to control the overall side, like how are the Russians doing or how are the Germans doing, and it allows me to control how well they're doing independently. Like they can both actually be doing very well at the same time if they're both succeeding at their missions in the game. Next unit here is a static target. Um, this will, by the way, when you import it, look exactly like this. The static target is just that. This is the logic and concepts for controlling something that would be like fuel tanks or an airfield full of airplanes or tanks or cars or like whatever, but things not moving. Um, and it's generally used, at least the way that I use it, is that like its death has pretty dramatic effects. uh, it doesn't follow the rules of most of the other units, so I don't use it in a similar way. But we're still going to go in it and look at it really quick. I'm just grouping that so that you don't see details you don't need to care about. What this really is in here are the actual units. You'll see them. It's just 4 fuel tanks, but you can switch this. Like you can switch it on the fly. You can switch it anything you want. Um, Switch to some ammo. It doesn't matter. You can also change its side. That doesn't change or affect any of these logics. But it really only has one, and everything here acts like a function, like a programming function, or more realistically, like a mathematical function. It has an input, and it has an output. Like, the function multiply takes 2 numbers and returns a new number. This is the same kind of concept, but this function takes a trigger that sends an activate, and at some point, it will send destroyed, or will never send anything. And that's just how this little function in the system works. You can know that what you can do is just copy and paste it, and you have something that will tell you when all its units are destroyed that's static. And will do things on activate, and will also display on the map its status. Here is a section of the map that's intended to be displayed in like kind of like a legend area. And here are the units themselves, and a part of the map that should, part of the display that should probably be near the actual units, like it's intended to be like the target. But we don't want to copy that and use that yet. The next unit are just, oh, sorry, that's not it. The next unit are just some artillery. These guys don't even send a signal. They're just artillery. You can send them a signal, though, and that's to repair them. So they stick around. These are the only units in the whole system that actually are not destroy on death. People that have done the mission builder will understand that. Other people can ignore it. These are only units and the things that aren't destroyed on death, so they actually like will stay around the battle in their destroyed state, which looks cool. Would love to do that for everything, but I mean, obviously that would get entirely out of hand. But they can be repaired, and this is great because I just noticed they need to be. Most of the stuff is well named. I've probably failed in some areas, like I just did right there. Right, left it as trigger timer. The next unit, and I probably should have gone from the bottom to the top, as you'll see the bottom units are more fundamental and these are more like overarching, but they show you things. This guy is basically a bunch of icons, but it's also a controller. If you start looking inside these things, it looks very much like this controller down here. But what it does is this produces an interface for controlling a whole bunch of the fundamental units I'm about to describe. And we're not really going to talk about this much because it doesn't matter for the QMB, and it won't matter until you're building things that are aggregates of all these bottom units. So we're really just going to ignore it for this. Just know it's there and it can display a bunch of crap. For guys that have played it, the triangle-looking nonsense is inside this. Maybe it'll look different at some point. I'm not very good with the map. It's hard and not precise. I like things that are precise. The map is like, draws curvy lines when you don't draw curvy lines. I'm sure it looks great and stuff. So the next thing is a train unit. So this thing that I just selected right here, all of this, these 5, these 3 triggers, these 2 groups, and these two icons here and this icon right here, you'll see that these all look very similar. That's one. That's the trains. This is like column-based unit, like on a road. It can be off a road, but it'll move like a column. These are air units. And these are abreast-moving units. They don't move on the road like tanks. That's it. We just went through all of them. That's all the units. I'm just going to, since all of these 4 are effectively the same, they are not just effectively the same, and the nerd realm of category theory, they would be considered the same type. In other words, you can hand these to... No, that's just too many details. Who cares? We're just going to talk about how you use them. Essentially, they have input triggers on the left, output triggers on the right. All the input triggers on all 4 of these are exactly the same. All the output are exactly the same. That's what it's really meant by they have the same type. Inside, they do different stuff, but you interface with all of them the same way. When you guys are using these, there's all this junk in here, and there's even junk inside that junk. But you don't ever have to touch it or mess with it. All that junk controls how, in this case, this is the train. The train starts, the train moves across the road, what happens when the train gets destroyed, what happens when the train reaches certain points, all that kind of stuff is inside here. And what you can tell it is you can tell it to activate. Activate means really start, like, hey, get moving. Um, Enter the world if you're not already in the world, and start doing your thing. If you are already in the world, this does nothing. It's no op. Run is an explicit. There are conditions inside this that can create a situation for running. For a train, that's not very meaningful. It doesn't very much do much. It doesn't do very much except for increase its speed towards its end or stop it, depending on circumstances. On other units like airplanes and tanks, of course, it makes them turn around and go home. Um, Success means finish. It tells it to run. It does. It sends it home. But end with a success condition no matter what occurred in the game. Fail means it's exactly the same kind of concept. Go home, get out of here, disappear after you get home and finish, if there's any of you left, anyway, and send a fail condition no matter whether or not you succeeded at your mission or not. Each of these units effectively has a mission. Again, we don't have to go to that. Shutdown is connected to this next button, init. Shutdown means really, really shut down. And what that is that like once you hit init, these icons will show something always. But when you hit, and so that's like, this is kind of the first button that you hit. You normally hit it right at the beginning of a mission, until shutdown gets hit for whatever this is. Shutdown will turn off the unit in entirety. If it isn't already gone from the world, then it will send it home and wait for it to be gone, and then we'll do shutdown. If it is already gone from the world, then it brings down everything except its ability to activate, and these icons go away too. When you hit init, these icons show up. The way these icons work is that this icon is active when this is active. And by active, I mean like really happening. When it runs and finishes and all its units are gone, this goes away, and this one turns on. So when this one's on, it's initted. In other words, you can see it on the map as existing to some extent. But when this one's active, there are no units in play at all. And so the way that I do this, I really want to use color, but I found out that like color doesn't work for the text unless you have them linked with wires. But if they're linked with wires, it's way more complicated. So both to set up, to copy and paste, to activate and deactivate, all that kind of crap. So like the way that I'm doing it is that I put a little bracket around this top piece. And so like the way that this works on the map is that when there are no units in play, you'll see bare, the word train. When it's got units in play, you'll see it with a bracket around it. So you can line all these up really nicely. And then this guy that says train is intended to be put right here. You'll see all of these have this kind of thing. Like this is the columns, and there's a column one. Column with a bracket, column without a bracket. Air, 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 air. And so, whatever. We'll talk about the next little details on that in just a second. This is only visible when there are actual units in play and moving. So it's pretty great. It's pretty handy. So it makes doing things like putting units directly on top of each other so that like there's exactly the same column following section here, or very, very similar but with different units. That's how this ends up being put into place. So like here, we'll move the train out of the way because I got roads here, and we'll start showing how this works just a touch already by grabbing the column. You know what, I lied. We're going to show it in 1 second. I'm just going to finish these. This is a big enough mistake. I should probably restart the video, but I'm not going to. So what happens when the train is doing its business is that it's just sitting there doing its business. When it finishes by either destruction or some other conditions, it depends on what's inside these things. And by the way, I'll be making more of these that are kind of like specialized, but we'll talk about that in a minute. When it finishes, it will return with either success or failure, whether or not it succeeded or failed. And it's how can also return shutdown when shut down. And so that interface is how everything is controlled. We're going to talk about it here really, really, really soon. Each of these have the same thing. Activate, run, success, failure. And remember, these are like to tell it, hey, go home and report success or failure regardless of what happened. Shut down and init. whether or not it succeeds or fails, those get triggered after the, like, as soon as it's out of the world. That means like it made it back to its home base and deactivate was called on it, or they've all been destroyed, or some other condition that causes them all to deactivate, which generally just means they've all been destroyed or they made it back home. And it keeps track of like what's been destroyed and what hasn't been destroyed, so like you don't have to worry about it. It will always, unless there are units still currently moving and active, like moving and trying to complete their mission, or trying to get home, uh, it will, whenever that stops, and that will stop at some point, it will always return a value here. Additionally, if you ever explicitly, this is like for people that are like concerned about success or failure of these things, or like maybe these things getting stuck, they really don't. Um, in fact, they so much can't get stuck that even if it was to get stuck, and I've never ever had to do it, if you hit shutdown, it will ultimately bring and deactivate all the units. Um, I've never had to do it though, and I've now done it literally thousands of times with these guys. They always finish in some extent, be that either complete death or making it back home. So let's start using it. And for that, we're entering kind of the QMB section of this. I'm going to make sure I'm not at just an insane number of minutes. You know what? I think it would be correct to separate these. 15 minutes is probably enough for somebody to watch. So this is the video that is just for what each of these little units are. And I'll start the QMB mission right now. It's just going to go